we're going to move on to the main event of tonight. Thank you all for coming. We do have a couple open seats up front for any folks who are standing up. So I'm going to introduce Robert, but before I do, I just want to, kind of lay down the ground rules for the discussion tonight. So we are going to have, some of the folks from Canyon Snow talk for 20 minutes. Then we'll have the neighborhood group speak for another 10 minutes. And then we'll do 30 minutes of Q&A. So we're leaving a lot of time for Q&A. So I just want to reiterate, we're a neighborhood association. These are our guests. We need to respect our guests. They're here, spend out of their time to come and to present to us. So please be respectful to everyone. And we'll go ahead and get started. How's that? All right, so I'm going to introduce Robert Reese, who is part of, are you the director of the land use? All right, the chair of the District 8 Community Roundtable Land Use Committee, Robert Reese, who's going to kind of give a prelude to the discussion that we're having tonight. So, Robert.
I want to thank everybody over the course of this past year as we've been working on this land use issue in Evergreen for the friendly and serious-minded approach to communication, doing homework, and being prepared to have good community discussions. I just wanted everyone to understand that the reason that Canyon Snow tonight for the temple is doing 20 minutes, we had a prior meeting where the residents had 20 minutes and Canyon Snow had about 10 minutes. So this is actually the second meeting we've had. The District 8 Community Roundtable likes to facilitate good discussions with neighbors and developers on land use applications. And there's been an ongoing effort to do this. The application was just filed this week. The city's formal role in the processing of the development application is just starting. This is an informal meeting that we're doing. It's not a city sanctioned meeting. And I don't want to take too much time myself. If anyone has any questions about the development process from this part out, feel free to ask me during the Q&A. There's a couple of folks that I want to introduce that are here tonight. We have John Leyba, who's a former San Jose Planning Commissioner. He's a good resource. Nancy Lee and Patrick Garrity from Sylvia Arenas' office are also here. We have our Land Use Committee members, Sandy Randles. Sylvia's here. I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Sylvia. Daniel, and we have Les, who was also on the Land Use Committee. Two important members of the Land Use Committee that are not here tonight are Jim Zito, who actually, Jim's here. Here he is. And Bonnie Mace, you got out of your meeting. Thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jennifer, who will introduce the team. And thank you all for coming.
Robert, thank you very much, and thank you all for making time tonight. We've had a chance to meet with some of you in the past, and perhaps some folks are here meeting with us for the first time. So welcome, and we're very happy to be here to answer questions and to share with you some updates in the design, to share with you how some of your input has led to some of those updates, which we're very pleased to be able to share with you. And we've also literally shared the application with all of you online. So if you have not yet seen the link, you can get it from Robert. I'm going to just offer you up. But we want to be very transparent. And we know that it's sometimes hard to keep up with all the details. And we want to get your best questions and your best ideas. So we want to be completely open. Thank you all again. So I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm with Canyon Snow Consulting. And we are part of the team that's working on this project. We have with us today some other members of the team. Andrew Mann from Andrew Mann Architecture is here, and Susie Marzuela. They will be giving us sort of the majority of the new information tonight. I also want to acknowledge my colleague Kathy Yoon is here, and David Blackwell with our group is there at the side, and Birgit Johnston as well. So feel free to ask any of us questions, but of course during the Q&A, we'll all be up here to give you our best answers. like to just also very quickly kind of go over the goals of the meeting. We want to, we know we've just got 20 minutes, so we're gonna briskly, as best we can, kind of move through the updates with you so that we can spend more time on Q&A. And you can see the kind of organization that we have put together here to address those categories of questions that you most care about, that we can tell. But if there are things you want to talk about that are not in this list, that's what the Q&A is for as well. But before we kick off, I would love to invite Vong to come up to the front and join us for a few minutes, just to say a few words as a member of the temple and as your future new neighbor, to share with you a little bit of background as to who these folks are and a little bit about how they... Sorry? Vong, would you like to?
Hi everybody, thank you very much for making the time to be here tonight. My name is Vương Thach, the president of the Khmer Krom community at San Jose. I have become the member of Wat Kampuchea Krom since the beginning of our Khmer Kampuchea Krom community. As one of the Khmer Kampuchea Krom citizens, which originated indigenous people from southern of Vietnam. I have been a member of the temple since 1997. I would like to introduce to all of you about the background of Wat Kampuchea Krom community. We are from Kampuchea Krom land, being known as the indigenous people in the southern part of Vietnam. We have our own culture, language, literature, religion, and tradition. But when the time changed, Khmer Kampuchea Krom has been subject to Vietnamese colony under the agreement and signature of France. All dignities have lost, including our own right, religion, culture, and tradition. Due to the political crisis, the World War, and the Khmer Rouge mentioned above, one part of Khmer Kampuchea Krom population took a high risk crossing the border in order to ask for safety refugee. We planned to take refugee abroad, some in Thailand and some in Philippines. Fortunately, the government of the United States of America accepted and uphold the immigration and give a life of freedom to us without discrimination, race, and color. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for that. I'd love to turn it over to Susie now. Is that right?
Sure.
Great.
Good evening, and thank you again for this opportunity to introduce to many of you and to show many of you again where the project is in its design. As you know, we have engaged with in various forums with neighbors, and we value your feedback and that you have given us. And these meetings, as many of you know because you attended them, have included 2 meetings that the temple hosted and 2, including this one's meeting with the Roundtable for District 8. Members of the project team also held numerous meetings, individual meetings with community leaders and with neighbors. And that input has gone into the design of the project, as you will see tonight. What we learned from our participation in the October 3rd meeting was that we had not been clear in a number of things, and that's what we're here to do tonight, to clarify some of the items as they relate to the practices that happen at the temple, the amount and the types of activities that will happen at the temple, and the connection between those particular uses and where they might occur on temple grounds. Since that meeting also, we took the time to take your comments into our design, and in light of that, make some revisions, and we're here to share those with you. In particular, we'll be focusing on uses and intensity of uses, size and scale, parking and traffic, and finally, governance. Before I turn it over to Andrew to talk about uses and intensity of uses, I'd like to say that the conditional use permit application has been submitted. It was, am I still? There it is. The application was submitted earlier this week, and that design was prepared to be consistent with Envision San Jose 2040, which is the general plan for San Jose, and to be consistent with the policies and the requirements that are set forth in the San Jose zoning ordinance, which allows for religious assembly of this kind in an R15 district. We've worked hard to make sure that that project is designed, complies with city development standards, that it incorporates green building standards, and that it exceeds, and it has exceeded the public outreach guidelines that are set forth in the ordinance. The proposed project, now that it's been submitted, will be carefully reviewed, and of course it will be subject to conditions that come out of the planning department and the city of San Jose to review. So now I'll turn it over to Andrew to talk about site use.
Thank you, Susie. So we're going to have a series of drawings up here for you to look at. And really what we want to talk about are, we've broken down the use intensity into basically three categories. There is daily use that happens with on the weekdays with the residents of the monks who live there and community members. The weekly gatherings for services and those kind of events, and then the religious celebrations and private family events. Sorry about that. So next slide, Susie. So for the weekday use, and actually what I also wanted to do, could you go back one slide?
Sure.
So the drawing here identifies just those individual spaces. I just want to walk you through quickly that there's on the Norwood side are the more public buildings, on the farther in are the more private buildings. So at the front is the entranceway, administration, courtyard that leads to classrooms below, the temple building and the community hall, and the catering kitchen. Okay, next one. So in this drawing, what we're showing is really using this diagram with the blue zones, really where people will be during a regular weekday. And remember, there are 8 monks there, and what will happen throughout the day is that there will be community members who come to bring food to the monks. The monks do not cook for themselves. Monks need to be finished with their meal by their food by lunchtime, so that there's activity in the morning, and the community members come with food, and there is meditation. The afternoon involves education, talking, leadership with the community, and really it is a very small intensity in terms of the amount of usage. As you can see, there are not more than 30 people who will be in the temple during a regular weekday. So that includes the 8 monks and plus whatever members from the community come to be with them for that day. And so you can see it's like the intensity happens at the temple. There's minor stuff up in the administration, small area of dining in the community hall, and then the regular living of the monks themselves. Next slide shows the weekend use. And like any other religious organization, there is usually time during the week when more members of the community will show up. And so that, for example, during the services and meditation and leadership of the monks in the temple, there's more activity. There's a little bit more that happens in the community hall where members of the community bring food for the monks and they have a shared meal at lunchtime. And there is some additional, organization in terms of the meeting space. During a regular weekend, this might be 50 or 60 people. So it is still a very small intensity of use. And then on the more occasional days, when there are 4 religious days during the year that attract a larger members of the larger community, that is the Lunar New Year, that is the Vasava days, if I'm saying that correctly. There is a day that honors the temple itself because of its consecration. And those are those times when there is more activity at the buildings themselves. And that this is what the larger spaces have been designed for, which are those occasions like at any other religious organization, where whether that is a church during Christmas or Easter, whether or not that is a synagogue during our holidays, whether or not that is a mosque during Eid, those are the things that these buildings are designed for. The community hall will also be used for family events, whether that is a memorial service where family members might come to honor those who have passed away, and educational opportunities too. And I think that one of the things that I'd like to stress too is that I recently went to a day-long meditation retreat at a Buddhist community in near where I live. And it involved meditation. It involved the same kind of activity where members of the community brought food for in this case, it was Buddhist nuns who were leading the meditation retreat. But it was thank you. It was a quiet, introspective experience. And that is the majority of what happens in this building. Even at larger events, that the kitchen the use of that is for catering and for the community members to bring and heat up food. Many of the events are the members of the larger community are bringing food to feed everybody themselves. So that's really a description of the building. And the building has been designed so that it accommodates the community now, and it accommodates the expected growth of the people within the larger San Jose area who might come. So we've right-sized this building for what the needs are of our community. Next slide. And one of the things that we really heard from the audience the last time we were here was a misunderstanding about how that kitchen would be used. And it is truly meant for catering at its most maximum occupancy. And so one of the things that we have done is that we looked really hard at that, because that is the intent. And so that in the area that we've highlighted between the kitchen and the monks' residence, we've reduced the size of what that kitchen was in the earlier diagrams. The other areas that we looked at in terms of being respectful to the neighborhood and the street is that we've also downsized the administration building just to minimize the footprint on the site itself. I think the important thing to keep in mind is that we really worked hard to keep the building within the scale of the neighborhood in terms of this here shows the roof plan of the building surrounded by the roofs of all the neighborhood houses. And the goal is to keep the temple building is the most prominent building. The other buildings, we're keeping them small, peaked roof forms, very much in keeping with the neighborhood itself. So the goal is really to be a good and responsive neighborhood. And the buildings are all single stories. The project, in terms of what you see as actual buildings themselves, is less than the square footage of the development that was originally proposed for the site. They're single story, and along the side of the Norwood and Ruby, the buildings exceed the required setbacks from the streets to create green space and garden visible to everybody within the neighborhood. And I'm going to turn this over to Susie, who will address parking.
Thanks, Andrew. So the city policies and zoning requirements come with requirements for parking that are typically calculated using square footage and the occupancy type of the proposed development. And that's how we get to what the parking requirements are. It's not we are simply responding to what is required. The goals that we have for the parking, we would like to think are shared with the people who might live in this neighborhood or who do live in this neighborhood. And those goals are, we want to avoid having temple member parking on the street. And we want to avoid having a parking lot dominate the experience of this site from either the street or the temple grounds themselves. So with that in mind, our solution has been to bury the parking, to get it off the surface, to avoid the eyesore of surface parking, to avoid the noise that comes with a surface parking lot, which is door slams and chirping blocks and fumes and headlights and pole-mounted parking structure lights or parking lights, and to contain all that in a hard-working garage. And it also minimizes the stormwater runoff that would go into the system, the city's system, because it's now being absorbed into a garden space as opposed to being drained onto a surface lot and into the city stormwater system. But most importantly, we wanted to maximize the garden experience from the street and from inside the temple grounds. Another solution that we're proposing that's kind of recognized by the zoning ordinance as a best practice is to implement a traffic demand management plan that will help us qualify to optimize the size of the parking garage, and then to implement off-site parking shuttle system for those occasional larger events that come with any religious institution that you might have in your neighborhood. And then finally, there's how will this affect traffic? The question of the traffic. There will be, as part of the environmental review process, a traffic study that's prepared by an independent third-party traffic consultant that will help review the impacts that this project might, the traffic impact this project might have on the site, in the neighborhood, and then come up with mitigation measures to bring it into compliance. Quite frankly, we don't feel, because of the intensity of use that Andrew describes and the counter commute use of this ground, of the temple, we don't anticipate that there will be traffic impact during the commute hours in the neighborhood. I'm going to move forward on to one last slide, which is governance.
So just a quick word about anticipating traffic. It actually doesn't matter what we anticipate or what you all anticipate. What matters is what's measured in the traffic study and how that study is conducted and how the modeling works the way it works for all projects in the city. So
Done through the city. That study is done through the city.
That's the state. We don't do that study. We have to live with the results of that study. So the last question too that we wanted to address, based on what we've heard and questions that you all have, is captured in the idea of governance. And we want to say that we will be a good neighbor. And we know that you are all, some of you are worried about being the police, having to be the ones who complain if our noise is greater than what's allowed, or if somebody parks on the street. And so we want to talk to you about governance and how we will commit to governance practices in our conditional use permit. And some examples are here on the slide. I know we're short on time, so I'll let you read those. But basically it involves being accessible to you, being responsive to you, and sharing with transparency, much as we've done all along, the results of your inquiries to us. And also getting out in front, letting you know when there's going to be an event, letting you know what we're doing to handle parking and shuttles and that kind of thing. And also to welcome you to the temple when you're interested and on a regular open house kind of basis. And similar to the construction period, there are a vast number of mitigations that we can and will take to minimize the impact on our neighbors during construction. So we can go into more detail on those if you like, but I do want to be careful about our time and turn it over to Murali.
Yes, I top and Jan can be top.
Okay, great.
Oh, I don't know if I need that. I think voice. Can everyone hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm loud. I'm loud by nature. Thank you to D8 for allowing us to come and speak. I'd like to also, we appreciate listening to the temple and the representatives. Okay. Guess I'm not as loud as I thought. Janet and I are gonna just have 2 slides. We're not a very big show. But we represent a group of Evergreen residents in the district. We've always felt that as residents in District 8 in Evergreen, we've always been amenable to projects in our community. We've always been included in the projects regarding some projects like the Village Square, Evergreen College. We've always been part of the process. And as neighbors, we've always been able to assimilate any new development in our neighborhood. So when this project came to our attention, we made sure we followed it. As it progressed, a core group became we had some concerns and some issues, and we wanted to make sure that they were addressed. And so we got other neighbors involved. And so we like to present some of our issues or our concerns, our perspective on the project itself. Now, we're hoping that the temple, construction will follow the Envision 2040 plan that the city of San Jose has drawn up. And in the moment, it has, we want to make sure that we have things that the city says for the integrity of our neighborhood, our quality of life won't go down. Canopy, trees. How many trees do we have in the area? Trees that are cut down have to be replaced. Streets have to accommodate traffic. Does it fit R1 to 5, which means single home or other types of housing? Does it fit in the community? But the city also has another thing going on right now. It's called urban village models. And so right now they're currently having a committee doing revisions on the 2040 to get those things going, because so there is change about. But we want to address some of the things about this project that we feel will impact our neighborhood on that corner of Norwood and Ruby. It will impact the integrity of our neighborhood. It's more of a model designed for urban village than for single home resident. It's a model that's designed with their idea of underground garage, flow of traffic, the amount of activity going on. It should be closer to, they'd like a corridor that has a lot of mass transit or available roadway. So anyway, I'm gonna go through this quickly. One thing we found that the underground parking and the main floors will occupy over almost 20,000 square feet. It's 1.9 acres is that corner on Norwood and Ruby. For the gathering hall itself, there's 5,000 square feet. The temple is 4,300 square feet. The administration building is roughly 1,000 feet. It still has a commercial sized kitchen. I have seen, as a middle school administrator and teacher, that's bigger than our high school and middle school kitchens. 900 square foot kitchen. It's going to have, which is a main change for our neighborhoods and for any single home residential. You will not find underground parking in any single residential neighborhood in this San Jose area. You won't find it in Almaden, Willow Glen, Cambria. They're asking for an underground parking garage that will accommodate 90 plus cars. It's up to 40,000 square feet. That's roughly over 600,000 metric tons of dirt being removed. It's gonna have, for both floors, top and bottom, garage and above, is over 60,000 square feet. And the intensity, the capacity for this project is for a group of congregation of 500 people. So we're talking about events that, even though they may not be put on the application, but they may plan down the road for anywhere from 5 to 15 events a year that will require a large catering, weddings, functions, where you're gonna have maybe 400 or 500 people. So they have that capacity, they have that intensity. Okay, so that's what so we want to be involved in the process to make sure that when this project is built, that it is having our input and fitting the need of our community and maintaining our integrity as a single home R1 to 5 residential area. Now I'm going to turn it over to Janet, and she's going to finish up on the second slide.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, community members, for coming out, the roundtable for having us be able to rebut or speak to the temple presentation today. The temple congregants, thank you. It was very nice to hear from you. And the neighbors, you guys have worked tirelessly and helping us out, working and walking different neighborhoods, getting the word out about this temple project, and it's much appreciated. So we think that the scale and intensity are too big for this site. We are in a neighborhood that's lower density uses, meaning single family homes. The project is surrounded by single family homes, and it will come. And I don't know if you noticed in the drawings, but there is one single family home that will be completely surrounded by the project. It's a small house on Ruby. So it's simply put, this project is way too big.
Yes.
The mere size of the project tells us that the site will be heavily used, and if not now, eventually, that we can't support this project as planned today. The intensity of usage of the buildings, based on our estimates, we just saw the plan night before last, and some of us were up at midnight trying to go through it, but some inconsistencies there. It looks like the overall plan really has not gone down in terms of square footage. some of the buildings have been shrunk a little bit, but I think some others have been rearranged. So we were originally told that the level of attendance would, for large events, would be an uncommon, like there'd be maybe 1 or 2 large events per year. But looking at the application, we now see more large events have been added, including weddings and funerals. I feel like I'm, on stage here doing a comedy routine, but and I could probably do one. But the point is that those will intensify the usage, of course. And we were also told specifically in a meeting in 2019, and I want to say it was by the temple founder's founder, I believe it was Lena Lim, that when we asked, are you going to have weddings, which means receptions and lots of people? Are you going to have funerals? She said no. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so,
It was on their board also when we went to the meeting.
oh, okay, well, there you go. Well, now it is in the plans, weddings and funerals. And in fact, the weddings say they can be done any day of the week. 7 days a week. We're not talking weekends. So obviously that intensifies the use of the buildings, guys. I mean, it's too big. Hours of operation, thank you. Now you got me going. It looks like, and I don't know the intensity of it, but from 4 a.m. When the monks wake up and start their routine to maybe 10 p.m. when folks leave after cleaning up and such on a daily basis. And we cannot support the intensity of that use. Now, we also feel that it's incompatible in terms of a 60,000 square foot underground parking. They don't exist, as Tom mentioned, in suburbs of San Jose. They shouldn't exist. They're not allowed. And where I grew up, out in Almaden, I tell you they wouldn't put up with it. So if you include the underground parking, which they've done, that allowed them to put more buildings above, so more density, more usage, and more intensity. That imparts to the neighborhood that it's just gonna be too big. We don't support the underground garage. Okay, the developer has not really incorporated any changes to the feedback that we've given them. They have changed some of the rooms a little bit, but again, per our calculations, and we have not even gone through the whole thing yet, it appears that it's just about the same scale. So the activities are too big, and they've gotten bigger. From the first rendition, the first one that you saw, they got bigger, and the next time they got bigger, and now they're kind of in between bigger. So let's talk. Let's talk about how we can come together as a community, as neighbors, as temple congregants, and the developers to manage a plan that will make the neighbors and the temple folks happy. Can we do that?
No.
I think we could do it.
One mic.
I got 1 minute, folks. So what we're asking, here's what we're asking for. We're asking you to get rid of the underground parking completely. We're asking you to downsize the project to a more suitable project, period. One that the neighbors are happy with and the one that the temple folks are happy with. And we know that that can happen. You want to be welcomed into this community. You are welcome. You are absolutely welcome. I think we can all accomplish our goals. We've been talking also to the community, to some of the outreach. We've had discussions with Sylvia Arenas group, with, again, the land use groups in the community, some of the other folks here. It can be done. We just need to do dialogue one-on-one, have some focus groups, get together, and make this community the best community for all of us. Thank you.
All right. So we're going now and just open it up for a Q&A. Janet, I don't think you want to go anywhere. So I think what we can do is maybe invite both parties up to the front and we'll do some Q&A. I think, so it'd be helpful if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll call on you, hopefully in order. And when you ask your question, direct it, say this is for Canyon Snow or this is for the neighborhood group, so folks know who the question is directed to. So your hand shot up first, so I'll go ahead and call on you.
I'm a 58-year resident of Ruby Avenue, to give you an idea. And they've added more and more on Ruby Avenue, a lot of traffic. And I guarantee you, this temple, I have no objection to a temple, but I do have an objection to adding more traffic. Plus, if you want to get a clue of what it would be like, go to San Fernando Street on Saturdays and Sundays, and there's a temple there. I don't know if it's the same organization, but there's traffic all over. Nobody can park their cars on the street. Nobody, the residents. So if you have an underground parking, that'll solve one problem.
Okay. Is there a question?
It's not a question, it's a comment.
Well,
I didn't come
thank
here
you.
for questions.
Thank you, miss. Thank you for sharing. We want to make sure that this is a Q&A period, that we can have a Q&A engagement. We all have our feelings about the proposal, so let's just ask questions to get answers. They came down here to answer questions. So the gentleman in the back, in the black.
Have they done any soil testing?
Have they done any soil testing?
Yes, not yet, but they're, I'm sorry.
We've done a geotechnical report for the property.
I live around the corner, when they start doing removing all the dirt, there's gonna be a lot of dirt chipped, and I just need to drive around Norwood, and I can see all the walls laying towards the houses. When they remove all that kind of dirt, we're gonna have some serious problems. All the people running, including the house in between the property.
There'll be, in all construction projects throughout the Bay Area and most of California, that there are regulations about excavation, air quality. Those things will be managed very carefully by the contractor.
Is the city gonna be responsible for all the damage around the houses?
I don't expect that there would be any damage.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, we don't want to do that.
Ravi?
A question, what is the response from the single house that is in the middle? Have they responded to you guys? Are they opposing? What is their?
I think in the past, there was an offer to purchase that property, to have a contiguous site. The gentleman declined the offer. And he has not, to our knowledge, sort of submitted any comments since then.
Yeah.
He hasn't had.
Follow-up question. Is that property going to be shared with, is it open to any other community to rent it or have any other function there?
No.
So specifically only for this Buddhist
Yes.
activities?
Yes, it's not a commercial enterprise area.
The gentleman in the hat in the back.
The runoff you were talking about with the big room garage like that being built, how's it gonna absorb the runoff that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, what we mean by that is, if you have a surface
I
parking
know
lot
what you're talking about, but I'm just saying how you get prevent, it's gonna make it worse.
during construction or after
No,
it's complete.
It being there, how's it gonna be absorbed?
So
You're
the
gonna
roof,
park around it?
the roof of the parking garage is essentially the ground.
Yeah.
And there will be gardens planted, grasses, gardens, shrubs. It's then has soil on it.
Yeah, but how deep? And then-
Well, there are design standards for that kind of thing, and stormwater plans and all of that.
There is a retention zone also that is part of the requirement for stormwater runoff, so that any water that comes on site is taken care of through the property itself.
Gentlemen, the.
Hey, just a quick comment. In the CUP, we found that they're going to put astroturf and not the regular grass and things like that. Is there any change since your CUP was presented?
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
Since in the CUP, it was mentioned that there's going to be astroturf, not real grass and things like that, real plants.
I don't believe that is
We
correct.
saw that in the scene.
It was in the CUP.
I understand this is a zone is on 1.5, that's residential. Okay, sir, we'll
We're
get
just
around.
answering this gentleman's question.
Oh,
And I think part of that answer is that there may be some part of the landscaping that has artificial turf. And I think part of that may be a drought resistance and a nod to that. But we can get back to you with a little bit more detail on that. Sorry, we do have a landscape architecture firm that just isn't here with us tonight.
Sure, we'll get around to you.
Yeah. So you were saying, gonna mention what the size of the residential, the internal square footage, what is the square footage?
Of
The whole project?
the whole project,
It's 62,000.
Around
less than that.
One speaker.
We know the answer.
Okay.
60,000.
If it's 19,000 square feet, this is in comparison, right? The Grace Church, they're sitting on 2.3 acres, 5,000 square footage building. That translates to about 2,200 square feet per acre, but on their lot size. The Sikh temple is 64,000 square foot building sitting on, 40 acres. I'm sorry, 110,000 square foot building on 40 acres. That translates to about 2,700 square foot per acre. Now this proposal that you're having is 19,000 square foot on 1.9 acre. That translates like 10,000 square foot per acre. That's 4 times as big as the Sikh temple.
All parcels within the city of San Jose have a zoning requirement that's called floor area ratio. And it qualifies how dense a property can be.
We understand we have the ratio for that zoning R15. And based on my calculator, so even we go maximize of the land, we can build 6 house. And 6 house we can have is 45% of the house is 4,500. It's calculated as 10 person live in one house. Times 10 times 6 is just 60 people. But based on your project, we have occupied 1915 for the people practice. So based on that factor, occupying factor, it's above 78 people. And 5,000 for the hall. So that means it's a huge.
This is not a house though, I mean, clearly it's a.
Not a hall, not a hall. So that means based on that calculation, we have 500 people at one event.
The
500 people.
conditional use
compared to
permit,
600.
if you look carefully at the conditional use permit,
Oh yeah, we do.
the maximum occupancy that we're proposing is 300 people. Which,
Yeah, 300 people, but think about it. You have 300 people.
the conditional use permit process is a means of which the city will be reviewing our application.
Of course, they can,
In
they
that
can accept it,
application,
they can.
They will be reviewing the use of the building and during times.
One speaker, please.
Of the year, the days of the week, the number of opportunities to have larger events, smaller events, that all gets vetted by the city of San Jose through this process. And they will help us define or approve what that occupancy is.
With their conditions.
That's what this process is right now.
Great. In the green.
My name is Albert. I live in the neighborhood very close to this place.
Mike, please respond.
Yeah, give me one.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Albert. I live very close by to this proposed temple. And I believe, this is not just my belief, but by many, many people I've talked in my neighborhood, that city of San Jose, if they go through this, is a very big mistake and they have a very big liability in their hand. And I'm gonna tell you why. Number one, this is really an R1 zoning. And if somebody wants to decide to build a big house, they still cannot have more than one family there. Now, if the city wants to break it down to 4 parcels, 5 parcels, they're best to just sell it. The owner can sell it and buy it and make a lucrative money to 5 owners. And each family probably won't even have 2-3 people living there. My own house, there are only 2 people living in the house. And what I'm trying to propose to you, this best for these owners of this temple is to find a very nice land, larger than what this is. In an area that is not so habitated by so many other people who are non-believers. I think this temple should, and I'm not prejudiced against this, I respect them very much, and I have no qualm about them. I think they should be residing in an area where there are most of their own people there, and also that if they want to have a party, wedding, and everything else, they will not be able to disturb the other people around them. And number 2 is, they once came on the false pretense that we want to have a garage. And once the things has been rolling, oh, they don't have enough money for the garage, or city says, well, we don't want you to have a garage. And now you're going to figure out how you're going to fit in 68 people transportation in such a small area. It's just not doable. So in one respect, you want to put a garage. Another respect, people proposing not to, and they're going to say, oh, we won't be putting as many homes in there or as many people in there. But I can bet you anything you want that there'll be the same number of people that they have originally decided, 68 people, 8 months or more, and it's going to be very crowded. So it's not doable. This project is not doable.
Sharing, and I just also wanted to reiterate that we all have our opinions on the issue, and we have the consultants, we have the neighborhood group tonight. Let's just try to focus on getting questions and finding out what we came here to talk about.
I do have a question.
Okay.
First of all, before question, the comment is we've been comparing this temple to the Sikh and the church. But keep in mind, those are very back at the end.
Exactly.
Versus this one is right in the middle of all the residential areas. So the impact is not the same. And by the way, I live right across the street on Old. So I don't want 90 cars every day run through my door. I don't want wedding happening in front of me every day. I don't want funeral happening in front of me every day. So question for you guys. I personally do not quite understand the whole process and who has the final say, yes or no, this plan. Question to you guys is how I can contribute. What can I do in terms of donation of money, my time, to stop this from happening? Whatever I can, because I don't want wedding or funeral happening in front of my house every day. So I'm looking to you guys.
Thank you.
No, we'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
All right. This gentleman had his hand up for a while.
Yes.
I'll get to you.
Now, this real, one thing I do understand, of the 4 people who spoke regarding the pushing the temple, how many of you 4 are congregants, members of the congregation? How many of you 4 people that spoke are members of the congregation? Or are you, if you excuse the old expression, hired guns? Oh, okay, but I'm asking who you 3 people are, and the other individual who spoke, are you all members of the congregation? So who are you hired by? That's sort of a rhetorical question. Okay, my other question is, The temple wants to move in and be welcomed. Okay? I'm happy to have a religious institution there. A lot better than a bar. However, I would think a religious institution would be concerned about the people who live in the area already and not move in. 2 to 3 years of construction I was a carpenter's son. I know what a little noise in the backyard is when Dad decides he's gonna start sawing while you're trying to sleep because you had a night job. This construction will be, if it's 2 to 3 years as has been supposed, that's gonna visit hell upon the community. What kind of a religious institution would do that to the other human beings? So what I want to know is how are we supposed to trust the congregation to follow through with the promises that are made?
No, it's not the right place.
You had your hand up.
I just wanted to ask you, given the feedback you get from the community, given the site I would like to ask you, given the feedback you're getting from the community, and given the fact that this site is not the optimal site for you, you have a private residence in the middle of the site. Have you done any due diligence at looking at other alternative sites that may be better suited to your congregation and also better suited to the anticipated growth? Because we all know in the community, any religious institution that opens up, their congregation only grows. It doesn't go down. So you're coming into this infill and you're throwing out numbers at the community, which may be right, it may have a justification, 500, 300, but it could become 1,000, it could become 2,000. You may outgrow even this site. So have you looked at other alternates? Because we as a community know there are several other alternates within a 5-mile radius.
Thank you. Those are both excellent questions. And the answer is yes. The Temple Foundation spent a long time looking at sites, and this one is ideal for them.
Sorry.
I would just point you to churches, synagogues, and mosques that are already in the neighborhood, and the fact that that's where religious institutions belong. That's why the city So
Let her finish.
let me finish, please. So I'm saying that this site, because it's allowed in the city zoning, this is what is contemplated, that people want to worship in the communities where they live, not out somewhere. And you can dig that out. And the second part to your question, the second part of your question is how do we know the size is right? And how will you trust us to not grow and put 1,000 worshipers in there? The answer is simple to that as well. The CUP places those conditions upon us. The size of the buildings dictates the safe occupancy. And the city will only allow, that's the city rules, guys. The city says you can have this many, and if we exceed it, we lose our conditional use permit. Those are high stakes.
Our group did a little study ourselves, and we found at least a couple, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 sites in the local area that would not only be cheaper to buy, but it would give them plenty of room to expand and they still be within the community. And so I think that had to be put out there. Okay.
Just a simple question. Would this project have any impact or effect on the value of my property? Of course. I have of course, right? I'm just concerned about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think that, we're not real estate.
And there should be someone here to answer
So I
that.
can't answer that question.
It's a crystal ball kind of question. Everybody's real estate values are going up and to the right, but we can't predict one way or the other.
Apologize for not having been here for more of these, and I'll try and speak up because I think they should keep the microphone, everybody. I've lived in the neighborhood Norwood and Rolling Side, so I'm just a few blocks up. Thank you. I have a few questions. First off, every building I've been in of any size has a plaque like that. I appreciated your drawings. First off, are they going to be online? The slides?
Yes.
Okay. You put the square foot of the buildings. What's the maximum occupancy of the buildings in the temple?
The temple is designed for 300 occupants.
No, I mean, the buildings are going to have a maximum occupancy,
Yes.
so that if you hold a group meeting like this,
Yes,
it'll say how many people they can
Yes.
have.
yes.
How big for this building?
So that the totals that will add up for the maximum occupancy, so if a fire marshal walks in,
Exactly.
all the buildings are gonna total 300 people.
The temple, each
Everything will be 300 people, so one building will be 50, one other building will be 50. There will not be allowed to have more than 300 people in all of those structures. What will they be in each individual structure?
The intended use of those buildings.
I don't care what the intended use is. What's gonna be the maximum occupancy per structure?
What I was trying to say was.
Yeah.
The intended use of those buildings is such that any large.
I wanna know what's gonna be on the plaque in each structure, in each room.
Let him answer.
300 is the
Right,
answer.
300 is the answer.
300
And
is the
In
answer.
each room?
Well, what I was trying to say is that I appreciate the question, and what I was trying to say was that the application is such and the building use is intended so that the temple is designed for 300 people, and that the conditional use permit will define how many people can be on the site at one point. Even though if you filled every single building with its own maximum occupancy, it might be a larger number than that, but that's not how the conditional use permit process
Who issues that
works.
plaque?
The building department.
And so what will be the number that will be on the plaques in each of those large buildings?
I would say that the temple will probably say 300 people.
Cumulative all
In total. So community hall, they will not add up to more than 300. All of the plaques in all of the buildings.
No,
No,
that's not what we're saying.
that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that there will be, if one added up all of those spaces.
Do you know what those plaques will say?
No, I do not know what those
Okay,
plaques.
thank you. That's the answer. What's the height of the tallest building?
The majority of the buildings are.
What's the height of the tallest structure?
The majority of the buildings are less than the 35-foot height limit that is the code limitation for residential. And that for religious institutions, there is an exception within the building code for a taller height for the roof elements on the temple building itself. And I believe, I don't have that number off the top of my head, I believe it is 42 feet to the roof. I think to the roof, I don't know how tall the spire is.
So you don't know what the height is?
I do know what the height is, but I don't have that off the top of my
Okay,
head.
are there any bells?
No.
Okay, now
Okay.
can I move into one thing?
You asked 3 questions already. We have to move on to the next.
I just wanted to let you know that in terms of capacity, for maybe for a wedding or some kind of a big intense community meeting, right now we're at about 150 people. That plaque says 107.
Exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. The point is,
We are not
the
having
point
any problem,
is
right? Here,
that
right now, we don't have
you
any
can
problem.
easily go over capacity. Okay.
And also to add, this is just a 2,000 square foot hall. And the temple is 20,000 square foot. Right. Just a point.
I want to say something.
We'll get around to.
So I just want to we have about 10 minutes left of questions. I know we have a lot of questions. We're going to limit it to one question per person. Don't need to preface your question with, your own commentary. If we can just get down to the question, we can move on a lot faster. So I seen the gentleman in the orange in the back.
I have a couple of questions I'll just ask you. One is, make it quick. Load on the. Wait, could you have the microphone? Yeah. So you are building on a slope, and when you dig down, you calculate the amount of load which you are retaining water have. Right. So there is a big, population of houses and people who stay uphill. Right? Yeah. What is the amount of load your retaining wall is going to handle? That's first question. Second question was on your self-governance. I see most of the agenda items on the self-governance was we'll invite the community, but I would like to see some punitive kind of conditions on your self-governance. Maybe when you exceed X number of things, you donate some money into the city or into the local school. Some punitive kind of things which make sure that you follow through on your CUP conditions. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. For your first question regarding the load on the slope of the land, we have structural engineers on board. As we said before, we've done a geotechnical report. We have not gotten to the point yet where we have designed the retaining wall for that, but it will be designed to meet the requirements to make sure that that is stable. And we will have a shoring engineer that designs any retaining that needs to be done while the project is being built. And that's really code requirements. In terms of your question regarding if we go beyond what the requirements, what's allowed in our conditional use permit, the city of San Jose has a process within that for how the community would need to mitigate that.
Can I make a comment? Everything, you keep hearing the word conditional use, okay? That's just what it is. They can only build this if they follow certain conditions. So, but as we know in real life, that's your honor system, correct? We have an understanding, that will allow you to do this if you do that, but we won't be around to monitor it. So that's one issue, okay? The major issue though is this is basically becoming a subterranean structure being placed in an R1 residential area where you're having underground construction now being permitted. And that opens the doors. Once you open that door, you can't put the cow back in the barn. Okay? And right now, in City Hall, they're doing the 2040, they're doing revisions to it because they want to bring things up to speed to urban village planning, getting the capital corridor ready for all that development where Reed's, by East Ridge, that big area and stuff. But if this is allowed to happen, this will be the first time in Evergreen. It will not be the last time. And it will set precedent. And the thing you have to worry about is in City Hall, sometimes the trend kind of carries over. And if things that seem really, really fantastic with urban village modeling, they start adapting it to single home residential, then again, you can't put the cow in after the barn door is open, all right?
All right, in the Warriors hat in the back.
How definite is this construction project? Is the temple at one point going to happen regardless what we say or what happens here, or is it still under debate? This is for the neighborhood associations as well as the temple representatives?
Yes, from our perspective, we have submitted the application. There are rules to be followed, and we have done our best to follow those rules with this application. And it is up to the city to review it and give us feedback, tell us if we've met the mark or not. And I'll just let Andrew.
Well, to answer your question, the foundation is committed to this project. It's something that we as the consultants that are working on it, the members of the community here feel heartfelt in terms of being able to create a home for, as Vaughn was talking about earlier, for immigrant displaced community that can be a home for their cultural institution.
For the neighborhood association, so regardless of the impact on the neighborhood and what we say this project will be moving forward?
Can I answer that a little bit?
Yeah,
for you?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
very much. Okay, so there is the CUP process and it is in now. And so the good thing about that, in a way, is that we will be able to have dialogue. You can go right now into the planning person who's in charge of this, Michelle Flores. You can email her, just look under government planning, and you can say the reasons why you don't think this is a good thing. We also have other resources. We have land use people right here in this room who can assist us. We also have Sylvia Arenas' office, who has been very good about helping us. She says she will help us through this process to try to bring the temple folks together and the foundation together and the neighbors together to come up with something that we are all happy with. You want to say anything, Sylvia's group or Patrick or? Let me hand this to Sylvia.
One.
If Jeremy, you're okay with us.
That's fine. Sure.
But this is absolutely your meeting, and we're here as guests. We were here to do an update. But first and foremost, Happy New Year's, everyone. Happy New Year. So my name is Sylvia Arenas. I'm your council member. I represent you at City Hall. And then I have a couple of folks here who are a part of my team. And so if you can come up, Patrick McGarity, and then Nancy Lay. And these are folks that can help support you in terms of the concerns that we've been hearing. So Nancy's been really busy jotting down every question and every answer. And our role here now is really, I'm here to listen. So I'm here to listen. I came because I wanted to learn more about the project since this just came in a couple of days ago. And I actually want to commend the Neighborhood Association group for summarizing a lot of what I think is a very complicated document. The planning director, if you didn't know, lives in our district. So she's very well aware of this project. And came here, I think, one meeting ago. We both came together and we talked a little bit about this. But at that time, there wasn't an application. So now we have an application for a conditional use permit. And the process is that this will go ultimately to the planning commissioners, right? It won't come to me. It won't come to council because this is a conditional use permit. But it doesn't mean that we don't get involved. So my role, my commitment is to listen to everyone. I'll be the lucky one in the middle. And I'll listen to the applicant. I'm obviously really in tune and listening to all of you. And I want to thank the core members from the neighbor group who met with me last year and came forward and just shared a lot of the concerns that you're all sharing today about the underground parking, about the type of project it is and its size. So I'm very well aware of some of your concerns. I will continue to listen and make sure that when I go back to City Hall and when planning, the planning department initiates this process, that a lot of what is being said here today is relayed back to the planning department. But the planning department will also have their own process.
So they'll have a meeting where they invite all of the folks within, like, what is it, 1,200? I'm not sure what the radius will be.
We're gonna do 1,000.
So the request, typically it's 1,000,
500 for 1 per 1,000.
typically is the 500 foot radius around the project, but this time it'll be 1,000. And so a lot more neighbors is what it comes down to. And I'm sure that because you all are very organized, the word of mouth will create a lot more attendance. And so that means that a lot of the feedback from all of you will be taken into consideration when planning is putting together their report. So planning will put together a report and look at how the applicant is complying or not complying, considering some of the feedback they've heard in a future meeting that we'll have. And this is sanctioned by the planning department. It won't be on my behalf, it'll be the planning department. This is their role, and this is what they plan to do. This is their next step. So they'll have a response for the applicant on their application, and then they'll also set up a meeting, a very formal meeting. You'll have enough notice. We'll make sure that you're there. If you don't get a notice and you're not within that 1,000 feet, it doesn't matter. You know, we will let you know. We will make sure we send it out in our newsletter. If you haven't signed up, please let us know. We can keep you in tune. But I'm sure that with all the turnout today, I can see that this is a concern and that you all are very well informed and keeping each other informed, and so that's really great. Patrick, did I miss it? So Patrick is my chief of staff, but he's also a past geography major in college, and so he's great in the land use field, and so I just want to check in with you, Patrick. Did I miss anything in the process?
A couple things that you mentioned that are worth repeating.
Wonderful. Let me have him do that.
I think the councilor covered almost everything that wasn't covered by the applicant earlier, but just to reiterate that the traffic review is done by a consultant of the city. The applicant has to pay for it, but it's the city's consultant. So that piece and some environmental reviews, and we'll go into that additional. So there'll be some sub pieces. And the only other thing was that with you having got the planning director heavily involved in this, they made a decision to list it as officially like a high interest project, which means that there's a special section on the city's planning website that's just for like, usually it's like 5 or 6 in the entire city of the ones where we want to make sure that everybody who wants to learn more about the project has good access to the documents. It will take them a few weeks to get those documents online, but they have made a point of acknowledging that this is one that requires that level of scrutiny and that the community views as needing that scrutiny, and that's a sign that they're putting it up on that high level. So.
And I think Robert's been doing a really, actually Robert, you've been doing a really great job in collecting a lot of this information and sending it forward. Robert's a former planning commissioner, so he really knows the ins and outs of that role. And I think you've kind of taken our District 8 Planning Commissioner role here in the Land Use Committee. And I think you've done a really great job in getting all the information out and guiding the group in terms of the process. So you have a lot of resources here in the community. You can count me in terms of that resource. We are listening. We are making sure that we jot everything down. We will make sure that we let you all know about that meeting for the planning department. And we will do our part in terms of guiding this process as best as we can. Like I said, this ultimately will go to the planning department, but I will do my best, and you have my commitment in terms of guiding this process so that it fits the needs of everybody. And I know that seems a little difficult right now because we have a lot of concerns and we don't have all of the answers just yet, and we haven't met in the middle just quite yet, right? So this is just the beginning of the process, even though the applicant has been giving us some information, which is great. Most applicants don't. And I want you to know that. Most applicants don't give communities this opportunity to learn a little bit more ahead of the application process. And so that's actually really beneficial to all of you so that way you're prepared and you understand the project and that you can have those questions well formed. So that's my piece on this temple. So I'm going to end with that, but I want to give you an update about what we've been doing at our office. And so I'm going to start with public safety. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through about. Sure. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I just took. Sure. You know what? We had an update next, so I thought we're just going to continue. Okay, here you go back.
No, don't go too far because you are going to be giving your council update.
Sure.
I just want to close out our conversation. I'm sorry, we're out of time.
There's another piece of information that's missing.
We'll get to, we'll
On process.
can we just go ahead and just close this out and then,
It's about us.
I'm sorry, we have 5 minutes left.
So there's one more
Jim?
step.
It's
After
just,
the planning commission gets the project, okay?
you have 1 minute, go ahead.
Thank you. Then if people are not happy with it still, and there are people within a certain radius, they have the ability to appeal the decision to the city council. And that's a big part of this, just so you know.
We're just going to go ahead and just close out this conversation. Thank you for coming to Canyon Snow. Thank you to the neighborhood group. If you want to have any follow-up questions, go ahead and feel free to email them. I know they've been giving out their email and contact information. So just really quickly, we'll have our council update. We're still going on with our meeting. If you're going to leave, you just, hey. Councilwoman Arenas is going to give her public safety update and the rest of her council office update. Please keep it down.
Okay, I promise I'm going to make this real quick because we only have 5 minutes. So on your way up, please grab a public safety series workshop flyer, and that way you can have the information. At the end of the year, what do? We have a lot of parties. Those of us who celebrate Christmas, but we also shop, don't we? And we shop online and we go to the mall, and that puts us into a little bit of a risk factor. So people are taking packages from your front door. I've had that done this last year. Or something is happening maybe at the mall. So this public safety series really was set up with you in mind, making sure that you are not a target, and so that you can do your part in keeping yourself safe and maybe being part of a larger group in terms of a public a neighborhood watch. So there's different topics. You can go to all of them. You can go to one. You can choose. You tell us if there's an item that we've missed. Okay, so that is the reason why we are doing this public safety series. You can take a look and see. Next week at council, we will be talking about, next week at one of our public safety series, we're going to talk about Vision Zero initiative, and that's the pedestrian and traffic safety. And it's going to be here at the library. So please join us. I am also very happy to report that we've increased our police officer in our police department by 20%. We now have a burglary unit. So if you remember, those of you who have alarms at your home, they weren't tended to, even if they were set off in real time or not. They just were not really tended to. Now every alarm has a response. We have now a burglary unit, so there's some investigation happening there. And we're working towards establishing an SVU, a sexual victims unit, because we have an increase in sexual assaults in this city, higher than a national trend. And so we want to make sure that those type of crimes are also addressed. And so I'll need your support in that as well. Please look out for our newsletter. We have a full policy update there, so I will give you all the details of that. You can sign up with us. You can receive that newsletter and read on your own. Next week at council, we are going to be voting on affordable housing projects. So there's 3 projects. This is really exciting because it takes a really long time for housing and for development to actually go through. It's a slow process. So these affordable housing projects will happen on Allen Rock Avenue, on San Carlos Street, and Almaden Boulevard. And so really happy that these are coming through the pipe, and hopefully they'll just skim through and for those developments to actually happen. The last I want to say is, do you know a leading lady? Do you know somebody in our district that's just doing a fabulous job, and that you want to nominate her for our Leading Ladies recognition? This is it really coming together at the same time we are celebrating 100 years of women's right to vote. And so that's happening in February. We're also celebrating our volunteers and our community leaders. And so if you have a leading lady in your community, in your life, please nominate her online or call us, and we'll fill out the nomination form for you, and then we will have those results in February, and we'll invite you to that wonderful event. So that is my report for today. And like I said, you can read a little bit more on our policy updates on our newsletter. And if you're not receiving it, you'd like to receive it, please let us know, and we will make sure we get you on that list. So thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you very much. We have one more report, that's our school board, our Evergreen School District's report. Jim, Bonnie.
Good evening, my name is Jim Zito. I'm one of your school board trustees. I'm president pro tem this year. Lila Welsh is the president. I just wanted to inform you that tonight what we did and why I was late was we had our normal monthly meeting, and we approved the last $15 million to release of the Measure M bond money, which is going to go to STEM schools, and it's going to go to school safety. There's a whole comprehensive renewal of the safety plan, especially in light of all the tragedies that have been going on around the different schools around the country. So that $15 million will be used for updating and finishing up all the STEM classrooms and all the remaining schools that don't have them yet, and to update safety. One thing, next meeting, in the February meeting, one of the things that I was pretty adamant about when they decided to close schools was that we have a decision on which schools would be closed before the March election. And the reason why is on the March election there's a bond that the school district is putting on. I think it's only fair that the community understands which schools are going to be impacted and which schools may not be open next year. So they granted the fact that next meeting, okay, the February school board meeting, they will recommend 2 schools to close for the 2021 school year. So if you're interested at all to understand which schools are being recommended and how the school board votes on that, I would strongly suggest that you attend that meeting. It's the second Thursday of the month at 6:30 at the Quimby Oak school site, which is the board site. So that's what I've got for you so far today. Question?
Is it the school board that approves those school closures, or is it a superintendent's decision?
No, it's the school board has to vote on which schools are closing.